So I invite you to just zero in on the words as our brother David brings this song, Let Me Fall. Please, put your hands together.
Someone out there is waiting for courage. The one I am, the one I will become will catch me. So let me fall if I must fall. I won't heed your warning. I won't heed them. All I ask, all I need, let me open whichever door I might open. Let me fall. If I fall, though the phoenix may or may not rise, I will dance so freely, holding on to no one. You can only hold me if you too fall away from all these useless fears and chains. Someone I am is waiting for my courage. The one I want, the one I will become will catch me. So let me fall if I must fall. I won't heed your warning. I won't heed. Let me fall. If I fall, there's no reason to miss this one chance, this precious moment.
for my courage. The one I will become will catch me. Just let me fall. Because all that I am designed to be, all that I know I am, that's the thing that will lift me up and allow me to be great in the world. Oh my God. I shared with David on Facebook this week, a quote came to me so related to this song, and it says, the readiness to fall is the confidence to walk.
Yes.
So you have to be ready to fall, because in saying that, that's your very confidence to walk through life and be amazing, to be great, to be great. Let me fall. God, I love that song. I love that song. Thank you. You gotta record that.
Yes.
What's going on out?
Yes.
Wow. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning. So we are walking without fear this month. Wow, we're walking without fear. And so last week we talked about inverted faith. The idea that that's actually what fear is that fear is just positive faith turned upside down. Many times we say, oh, I don't have a lot of faith. Well, yeah, we all do. We have plenty of faith. We just may be misapplying it. We may be negatively using it. And so last week we talked about how to turn that fear into positive faith and use it to walk through the earth and let go of fear altogether. I gave 4 pieces as recommended reading, and I want to give this to you again. You can write it down. It's on Facebook, and we'll share it again. The Science of Mind, Chapter 10, which is the chapter on faith by Ernest Holmes. It will support you in this month as we go through this. Also, Think and Grow Rich, Chapter 3, which is the chapter on faith, the second step towards riches by Napoleon Hill. Amazing chapter. I love it. I have the audio book. I listen to it all the time. And then the last 2 are The Game of Life and How to Play It by Florence Scovel Shinn, and The Power of the Spoken Word by Florence Scovel Shinn. And again, it's on Facebook. We'll reshare it, I promise. But use these texts to support you throughout the month. Don't read them all in one week. Pick one and sit with it for each week. And I guarantee it's something that you'll come back to over and over and over again. So Florence Scovel Shinn, I love her, and I talked about her last week. She gives us a lot of powerful information. I love the way she writes and the way she talks about applying faith, because there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, right? It's either you're all in or you're not at all, right? It's either you're exercising your faith powerfully or you're living in fear. And she mentions a writer, a Belgian writer by the name of Maurice Maeterlinck, which was interesting to me. And I went and did some research on him and found a bunch of texts that I love. He won a Nobel Prize. He's a playwright, a poet, an essayist. And in his book, which you can grab later, called The Inner Beauty, he writes something so beautiful. He asks a series of questions, and he says this. He says, why are we so fearful lest we exhaust the heaven within us? We dare not act upon the whisper of the God who inspires us. We are afraid of everything that cannot be explained by word or gesture, and we shut our eyes to all that we do, ourselves notwithstanding, in the empire where explanations are vain. Whence comes the timidity of the divine in man? Can it be that man is nothing but a frightened God? Powerful question. Can it be that man is nothing but a frightened God? We talked weeks ago about this idea that we are gods. Jesus asked the question, is it not written in your law that ye are gods? And we go to the Psalms and it says, ye are gods, children of the Most High, all of you. But when we're not using our faith in a positive way, could it be that we are just frightened gods? Having this power of faith, this superpower of faith, and yet not using it positively. And so that's where the topic for this message came from. What are you afraid of? What are we afraid of? As I thought about that question, another question came to my mind. I thought about, well, what are all the different things that we're afraid of? And there could be many different things. You know, some people were afraid of heights, and some people are afraid of spiders. We have those kind of fears, right? But when it comes to our life, what are we really afraid of, right? We're afraid of messing up. We're afraid of making mistakes. We're afraid of being seen as a failure. We're afraid of not being loved. These are the real fears. that are going on in our lives that keep us stuck. And so I began to hear another question. Because what I've learned is that fear talks to us. Yes, yes?
Yes.
It reminds us of some things sometimes. Yes, yes? And I heard fear asking a question. It asked a question and it said, what about the past? See, fear is interesting because fear is that thing that will remind you of everything you did wrong back in the day. It'll remind you of that relationship that you just destroyed. Maybe the person loved you unconditionally, but you couldn't see it and you let that person go. It'll remind you of the job you didn't take that you should have taken. It'll remind you of the risk that you took and things didn't work out exactly the way you thought. And it'll say, well, what about the past? You're going to try this again? It's the voice of fear. I was reminded of that voice in my own life when I was contemplating leaving my full-time job. Everything was lining up. I knew it was time for me to leave my full-time job. That was clear. But yet fear kept saying, what about the past? And what was the past all about? Well, when I was living in Maryland, I had wonderful, beautiful opportunities. I was producing a lot of music for different artists locally. And then an opportunity came for me to write a song for a pop group that was popular at the time. I remember Hanson. It was the three brothers. They had the huge song, Bop, and all of that, right? They were huge. Millions of records being sold, and they were getting ready to do a Christmas album. Guaranteed to go platinum. And through a series of events, I was able to write the song for them, and they liked the song. And they were recording it. So I'm like, I'm well on my way. So I quit my full-time job that I had at the time, because I'm like, I'm the man. I'm writing for a pop group, you know. I lived in Maryland. I was coming up to New York, meeting different people. One of my mentors was a great songwriter. Wrote Giving You the Best That I Got for Anita Baker and other huge Earth, Wind & Fire hits. I was like, okay, I'm in it, you know. And I was ready to leave that job anyway. Well, I made that choice, and everything just went sour. You know, at the end of the day, there were all these arguments about writers' credits, and they wanted more money. They wanted to write more music so that they could get more money, so then they basically scrapped every song that wasn't written by them. And so that opportunity was dead in the water, and it seemed like from there, just everything else went bad. And then I didn't have money, and my cousin, who was my roommate at the time, he was like, hey man, where's your money? We gotta pay rent. And so he just moved out and got another apartment and left me with the apartment. Like, just all of these things were happening, right? Like, wow. So I made a vow that I would never experience that again. I moved to Philadelphia, and that's where I began my career in IT. And I built an amazing, solid career in IT. Every year my salary went up, and every year my responsibilities went up, and I set a goal financially, and I hit it. And here I'm at that new goal, the life that I had set up, the productive life that I had set up to never experience that again, and I'm being asked to make a similar choice. And fear is saying to me, well, what about the past? Now, again, everything I know within me, I know that it's time. Everything was adding up. It was time. And I was a different person. You know, I was a completely different person. So I was able to take that experience and do differently, but still the fear was there. The question was there. And so this reminds me of when we hear this question about what about the past, it takes us back to thinking about the present moment. We sing every Sunday, I am here now. I breathe in, I breathe out, I'm in the present moment now. Why do we talk about that? Why do we keep saying that? Because you have to understand, as much as I feel like we can never talk about it enough, that now is all that exists. The past, although it may seem real to you, is only real in your mind. It's only a thought. The future, although it may seem real to you, it only exists in your mind. So what's deep about it, not only does it only exist in our mind, but then that means that in our minds we can choose how we feel about it or how we think about it. So I can make the past, I can take that story and say, oh, I crashed and burned and I made all of these mistakes and it was terrible and my cousin was mad at me and my parents had to rescue me and all of that. Or I could say it was a learning opportunity because I was actually able to take that experience, and then when the time came to leave again, years later, and use that became the gold that I was able to use to then stand differently and make a choice from a place of power, a place of confidence. So the thing about the past and the future is that it only exists in our mind, and then we have the opportunity to decide what it really means. But so often the voice of fear, we let the voice of fear decide what it means. And the voice of fear always tells us what? You messed up. It always tells us you're wrong. It always tells us you better not do that again, because you remember they were talking about you, they were laughing at you. Anybody know what I'm saying? Okay, I want to make sure we're in the same story. It couldn't just be me. And so this idea of the past takes me to a beautiful, beautiful illustration that I love from Paramahansa Yogananda, who's a teacher that we'll talk about in months to come. He is one of the instrumental teachers in really bringing the ideas of yoga and Hinduism to the West. He was one of the first teachers that stayed here in the United States for a long time. He came to the United States in 1920. And in his book, Man's Eternal Quest, he lays out something that's really beautiful. And I'm just going to read this and then we'll talk a little bit more about it. He's talking about divine memory, right? We have fear is asking us a question, what about the past? And so Yogananda is talking about what memory really is all about. He says, memory was given to man to reproduce good. To abuse the power of memory is harmful. To think hatefully of another person because of some remembered injury he inflicted on you is a misuse of memory. However, to recall unhappy experiences in order to learn the lessons inherent in them is a proper use of memory. As then, one may analyze his past behavior and avoid repeating in future the wrong acts that brought painful results. One should not bring back any wrong thought and relive it, for then it will stay longer in the mind. Memory was given to us to keep alive only life's good experiences and lessons. Get rid of wrong past thoughts by avoiding recalling them. If they come to mind in spite of you, refuse to entertain them. Let me repeat. To remember bad experiences and dwell on them is an abuse of God's gift to us of memory. Rather, one should vow, I will use memory only to recall good thoughts and experiences. To dwell on and remember bad experiences is an abuse of God's gift to us as memory. Memory, oh my God, memory is a gift to us. Think about it for a second. Think about how powerful it is when a song comes on that you heard in high school that used to be your favorite song, and immediately everything comes back. All of the good times you had, all of the friends that you had, immediately you can walk down the street and you can smell flowers that immediately will take you back to your first experience. The gift of memory. It's a gift. It's actually a power. But how often do we misuse that gift? Just as we take faith, and invert it into fear, how often do we also use this gift of memory that we have? Divine memory. And use that to beat ourselves up. Now, Yogananda says something that's important as I use in the illustration with my story. Now, you can use your memory. I can remember what happened and said, oh, okay, there were some lessons there. Doesn't mean that I'm wrong. It doesn't mean that I'm a sinner. It doesn't mean that I'm bad. They're lessons. And how I use that gift of memory, because it's a gift in this context, I use that to then do something differently where I am right now. But I don't use this gift that God has given me, this powerful gift. Again, the idea of memory is how we can take a picture and look at the picture and it just takes you back to that Christmas time, or it takes you back to that graduation or special event, special time. I love it. You know, I'm thinking about on my sister's Facebook page, she has this really cute cover photo of my nephew when he was 1. And just seeing that picture, it just takes you right back there. It's just beautiful. And it conjures up all of the feelings, all of the memories immediately. It's a gift. But again, how often are we using it to beat ourselves up? I recognize that there are many of us that want to move forward in our lives, but we have been listening to the voice of fear. We've been allowing fear to use this superpower within us to tell us something different about ourselves. And so we must remember that this idea, what about the past, it's a fearful question. It's an extremely fearful question unless we are using it to learn a lesson. I'm reminded of what Paul says in the book of Philippians 3:13 through 14. Beloved, I do not consider that I have made it my own, but this one thing I do. Forgetting what lies behind and straining forward to what lies ahead, I press toward the goal for the prize of the heavenly call. I press toward the mark. Now here's what's interesting about that, because what I hear is, okay, well, Paul is saying I press toward the goal. That sounds like moving into the future. Well, here's what we have to understand, where Paul was. He was talking to the Philippians. He was talking to the people of Philippi, who were Greeks. Now, last year we just celebrated the Olympics. Yes, yes? Yes. So he understands that the Greeks, they knew and loved the Olympics. That was part of their life. They gave us the Olympics, right? And so that image that he was talking about, pressing toward the mark for the prize, he was using the image of a runner. That if you know anything, I used to run track back in the day, but if you know anything about running, one of the things that you want to do, no matter what's going on, when you get to the finish line, you don't just cross the finish line like this. You press towards and lean forward, because sometimes you have that photo finish. The line is here, and sometimes it's just your head over the line that allows you to win. So he was using that example that he's saying, I forget all the past. I'm not worried about the past. I press towards the mark, and I press to move forward. Now here's what's interesting. I love Usain Bolt, and sometimes he can be a little cocky. Because as fast as he is, he hasn't allowed himself to truly be as fast as he can be. Why do I say that? Well, because I think it wasn't this past Olympics, it was the preceding Olympics, world record holder, what does he do as he's coming to the finish line? He looks back. What does that do? It slows you down. And so this is what was beautiful about what Paul was saying, that we're not going to look back in any way. We're not going to allow the conversation of fear to hold us back. We're going to keep pressing forward, understanding that we have a goal. Someone I am is waiting to catch me. So I'm going to fall. I'm going to move forward to put my head over the line, if that's what it must be. Because if you turn your head just for a minute, just for a second, you lose those seconds. And so that's a powerful illustration as we're thinking about and hearing the voice of fear ask you, what about the past? And so then the question comes, well, what is the remedy? Like, I'm with you, Pastor Greg, right? We're talking about walking without fear. And this beautiful illustration, Yogananda, it's great, divine memory, it's a gift, and I recognize it. Anytime that I'm saying to myself, well, remember what you did back then, I'm punishing myself with what's actually a gift. And so I should only use it if it's here, if I can use it to say, oh, there's something to learn there, or if I can use it to just remember the good things and the good times and the good experiences. So what's the remedy? One word. Forgiveness. I was reminded in A Course in Miracles, lesson 122, it says, forgiveness offers everything I want. What could you want forgiveness cannot give? Do you want peace? Forgiveness offers it. Do you want happiness? A quiet mind, a certainty of purpose, and a sense of worth and beauty that transcends the world? Do you want care and safety and the warmth of sure protection always? Do you want a quietness that cannot be disturbed, a gentleness that can never be hurt, a deep, abiding comfort, and a rest so perfect it can never be upset? Forgiveness offers everything I want. And so I'm going to ask you right now, as last week I asked you to think about whatever that fear is that you've been holding on to, just in this moment. As we say, well, what is the remedy? I would ask you, what is it that you must forgive yourself for? Something that occurred in the past that you've been beating yourself up, misusing this grand, beautiful power of divine memory, and allowing the voice of fear to continue to speak and say, well, what about the past? What about when you did or did not do something in the past? What about when you messed up? What about when he messed up? Because I'm hearing in this moment, see, sometimes what about the past is you want to move forward in a relationship, but you remember how terrible that last relationship was. It may have been abusive. It may have been completely unloving, and so the voice of fear is telling you, well, what about the past? Because that last relationship didn't work out. Maybe you're not worthy or ready to be in a relationship because you proved last time that you couldn't do it. Or maybe the voice of fear is asking, what about the past? Maybe someone did something to you that you feel is so unforgivable. Someone robbed you. Someone may have murdered a family member and you're saying, well, what about the past? I don't know if I can go and live life fearlessly when I know that there are bad things out there. That people are being killed, that people are being robbed and mugged. What about the past? You want me to walk through this great city of Brooklyn, this great city of New York, and be fearless? I have experiences. My brother was killed. My cousin was killed. My sister was killed. Or what about the past? You know what? I'm afraid to go to the hospital. I'm afraid to go get that test that I know I need to get because I know that's the test that I'm getting is something that killed my mother or killed my father. What about the past? Forgiveness offers everything I want. Of course, in Miracles asks the question, do you want peace? Forgiveness offers it. Do you want happiness? A quiet mind. A certainty of purpose. A sense of worth and beauty that transcends the world. You must bring forgiveness onto the scene. And last week we talked about one of the things that we must do with fear. Fear is always having a conversation with us. And many times we let fear just talk and we say, okay, and keep going. We have to talk back to fear. That's why I love the song that David sang. Because it's talking back to fear. Let me fall. Okay, fear, I hear what you're saying. You're saying I'm going to fall and crash and burn. I don't care. Because I actually know something different. I know something different that, as I talked about last week, the illumined walk without fear. We walk by grace. And grace means that there's always something and someone there to catch me. Grace says that I cannot fail. And so this is why I offer the readings that we have for this month, because Florence Scovel Shinn gives us some powerful affirmations. But you can go to Scripture. You can go to the Bible. I love Psalms 23, verse 4. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Oh my God. The valley of the shadow of death. I don't care what the scenario is, right? The worst possible, probable scenario that you can conjure up in your mind. Even though I walk through that valley, I fear no evil because I understand that love is with me. I understand that peace is with me. I understand that comfort and compassion and forgiveness is with me. And so I invite you to use this affirmation this week. I am fearlessly willing to become more of who I am. Fearlessly willing to become more of who I am. Let's just say it together. I am fearlessly willing to become more of who I am. I am fearlessly willing to become more of who I am. Let's stand on that. Let's stand on that. Oh my God. Oh my God. The readiness to fall is the confidence to walk. Take a breath, everybody, into this moment. Breathe out those fears. Breathe out the conversations of the past. We recognize in this moment that there were countless times when we listened to the voice of fear, that we let fear be the only voice in the room. We turned it on like a radio and just let it play all day long. But today, right here now, and in consciousness, we are turning off that radio. We are taking back our power of divine memory, and we are saying that those things, those memories that fear has brought to our remembrance, we now see that it was love bringing it to our remembrance. Allowing us to see it as a lesson. Allowing us to see it as a gift, so that we can operate differently here and now. We recognize in this moment that there is only now. And we recognize that the power that we have is to think about the past and think about the future. And because we recognize and understand that God holds the future, because we recognize and understand that love holds the future, we're not worried about tomorrow. We're not worried about what's coming. Because we know just as love and joy and peace and compassion and magnificence and brilliance and all that we know you, God, to be is present here now, so it shall be present in that future moment. And so it shall be present in the future moment beyond that. And so it shall be present in the future moment beyond that. And that is what we put our faith in. That is what we put our trust in. That is what we put our confidence in. And so we speak the word in confidence. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me, God. You are with me, love. You are with me, peace. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of the unknown, you are with me, God. Even though I walk through the shadow of, it may not work out this time, I know you are with me, God. Even though I walk through the shadow of, I don't know what's coming tomorrow, I know you are with me, love. I know you are with me, God. And so we are walking without fear. We are walking by grace. Knowing that you, God, will always catch us. Knowing that there is a greater experience. There is a greater expression of us that must be seen and felt and experienced on the earth. And so that's why we are going to move. God, we don't understand the whole story. We don't understand why it had to happen the way it happened. But we know that there is perfection even in the destruction. There is perfection even in the disappointment. There is perfection even in the difficulties. There is perfection even in the challenges. Oh my God. And so we are choosing, fearlessly willing to become more of who we are. We are walking in that this week. We are fearlessly willing to become more of who we are. Because the world needs us. The world is waiting for us to be all that we are. Oh my God, there is someone that is waiting for the love that we are to be on the earth. There is someone that is waiting for us to be the joy that we are on the earth. There is someone that is waiting for us to be the forgiveness that we are on the earth. And so God, I now release this word back into you, knowing that you are the cause, knowing that you are the how, that you will work it all out, that you will always bring it forth excellently and efficiently. And together we all say amen, amen, ashe, ashe. So it is.